Oh, good. It just started recording. Okay.
Mm.
All right. So if you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and about Thomas.
Okay. My name is Marcy Points, and we live in Raleigh, North Carolina. And my son, Thomas Points, has Apert syndrome, and he was born in July of 2018. And he'll be 4 in July. He's in a full-time preschool right now. He's doing really well. He's happy most of the time until he's not. And then, but he's the sweetest little cuddle bug, and he loves mama, and he makes my heart happy.
Very, very nice. Does he enjoy school?
He does. Yeah. He thrives on routine. So the full day this year for him has been a game changer. Yeah.
Nice. My daughter's going to start full time next year. So
Nice.
I'm kind of excited about that because she did really well with the half days. And so I was curious about the full days, but I think it'll be good.
Yeah. He did 3 half days last year at a traditional preschool, like our church preschool. And then this year he's in a developmental day center, which is, there are inclusive classes where there are typically developing children mixed with, special needs children. But he's in a class with all special needs. So there's only 6 of them with 2 teachers. Nice. And it's been just a blessing. He gets his therapy. Well, we'll talk about that, but
that's actually what I was just about to ask you. Does he get his therapies through the daycare?
He does. So it's through the county. So we live in North Carolina, like I said, so we live in Wake County. So when he turned 3, when he was born, we fell under the CDSA, Children's Developmental Services Agency, because he had special needs. And so until he was 3, we got all the services in the home. Everything they did, they came to us. So he had speech, PT, OT, he's had developmental therapy, he's had feeding therapy, and it was all in our home. And we kind of got to pick who his therapists were, which was nice.
Oh,
it wasn't
nice.
And so we did that. And then before he turned 3, we started preparing for his IEP. And so he got an IEP last June in preparation for him turning 3 in July. And they placed him, we requested to be at this school. So it's kind of, I feel like there's so many like God moments in all this, but our old next door neighbors have been super involved in this school for years. And we've been to fundraisers and dinners and all these things for this school, but we've never been on this side of it. And so now we're on the other side. And now my husband is like speaking at all these events, and
oh, wow.
People are crying with him talking where we used to be crying with other people talking. And it's just crazy how it's, now it's like really personal for us. So he's there, and it's wonderful. And they have a lot of fundraisers throughout the year, but their big one is a wine and food like weekend basically. And Andrew Zimmern came in this year. He's like a famous chef.
Yes.
So they have they raised, I think that event alone raised like over $3 million for the school. So it's
that's amazing.
The community is really involved in that school. So, so he got placed there, and we just had his IEP review yesterday, and he's going to stay there in a special needs class. I think it's better for him to be with less children.
Right.
And the teacher student ratio it's better for him to be smaller. So yeah,
definitely. That's exciting. You said that he got his feeding therapy through them. Does he have a feeding tube, or was he ever on any kind of devices?
No, he actually has nothing. So we had feeding therapy when we were still under the CDSA. Around before we started with solids, we started meeting with her. My pediatrician actually used to be with the CDSA, and it's very random that we go to this particular pediatrician. So she's super knowledgeable about special needs, and not Apert syndrome specifically, but just in general, like needing these different services and being on top of things. And so she was like, before you do solids, I feel like you should do feeding therapy because he has a really high cleft.
Yes.
Most either his palate, sorry. It's not cleft, but it's super high.
Right.
And he did have a little bit of trouble with solids. You know, I have 2 older children. I should have probably said that in the beginning, but Thomas is the youngest of 3. He has a 10-year-old brother and a 6-year-old sister. So he's the baby, but he's also the 3rd child.
Yes.
So we did that for a little while, and it definitely helped because it was just so different than it was with my other kids. Like we did a swallow study first to make sure that he wasn't aspirating.
Right.
And then we went into like solids, and it was a process with him, but then now he's, you know, fine.
That's
but
awesome.
we did that for a few months, and then we kind of transitioned that over several months later to speech therapy. So, and we have the same therapist. So can we go into therapy? Because we're on that.
Absolutely.
So now he gets speech, OT, and PT at school. And those are provided through the county because he has an IEP and special needs. He gets all of that for free, which is amazing. But we also do private speech therapy in addition with our old speech therapist, just because our insurance covers a portion of it. And he's so delayed with communication. He's still nonverbal at almost 4. So I just feel like if that's the one area we're really going to focus on, like this is where it's lacking the most, you know?
Right. And definitely if you have the ability to have both of those, the more, the better.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah.
That's awesome. Did you guys know that he was going to have Apert syndrome before he was born?
We did. We found out. So when I went in for my anatomy ultrasound I was probably like 18 weeks, everything was normal. I had done genetic testing at the beginning of my pregnancy because of my age. And we went in for the anatomy ultrasound and everything was normal, except the ultrasound tech could not count 10 fingers and 10 toes. It just like looked like little balls. But the doctor came in and said, everything else is normal. The baby's just probably not cooperating. And at that point, you can't tell with the toes because they're so little.
Exactly.
So it was just the hands. And so the doctor said it would be a waste of resources to pursue this further.
Oh,
everything's fine. So we went about our business because we didn't know any better. And fast forward to 28 weeks, I went in for my my gestational diabetes test, the glucose test.
Yes.
And I was huge. So my amniotic fluid was really, really high, which I feel like that should be a marker for people to check further. Like, because
I didn't even
think
think
about nothing,
that.
but it could be something. I think everyone I know had high amniotic fluid. And I have a friend whose son has Down syndrome, same thing. So I'm like, I don't know why doctors don't pursue this. Because I don't know. But so I went into my normal OBGYN and I was seeing a nurse that day and not my doctor. And she measured my stomach and I was measuring 33 weeks instead of 28 weeks. And I was like, is that normal? And she's like, well, let's just go do a quick ultrasound. So I do a quick ultrasound and she brings me back in the room and she says, everything's fine. Your amniotic fluid is really high, but your baby's head is looking a little bit large. So we're going to get you an appointment at Duke and get a level 2 ultrasound through their maternal fetal monitoring. So like I immediately remembered the hands in that first ultrasound. And I was like, oh my gosh, the hands. So I call my husband, I'm bawling, crying, like something's wrong with our baby. And he's like, do you want me to come over there? And I was like, yes. So he comes over. And I'm doing the diabetes test in the process of all this. And I see my doctor in the hallway. And he's like, oh, glucose test today. I'm like, did you hear what's happening? And he's like, no, what's going on? And I was like, my baby's head is too big. I don't know. So he talked to the nurse. And then he brought my husband and I in his office. He's amazing. And he was like, don't Google anything. Don't freak out. Go home. And like, tomorrow you have an appointment at Duke at whatever time. So of course we were like worried, but we were kind of like, it's probably fine. Like how many people like something like this happens and then it's nothing. So we go in for the ultrasound at Duke the next morning, and it was a long ultrasound, and we didn't find out the gender before he was born. So every time she's, you know, I'm like, we have to look away. When she went to the hands, I saw those hands again, and I said to my husband, the hands, and he's like, it's fine, it's fine. I'm like, no, it is not fine. And so then I saw her type in no fontanelle, no font. So he didn't have the soft spot because his, but I didn't know. I was like, what does that mean? I was like, something's not right. Something is, I just knew it in my gut. Yeah. And so she's like, let me go talk to the doctor. She'll be back to talk to you. Every other ultrasound I've ever had in any pregnancy, they always come talk to you in the ultrasound room. Well, they came back and they brought us to a room with table and chairs. And that's when my husband was like, something is wrong.
Something's wrong.
And I immediately was like, just hysterical, because I could just tell. And so the doctor comes in, she had horrible delivery with what she was telling us. It was so, I mean, I have PTSD from it. It was so awful. I can imagine. Because she was talking about a neurosurgeon, and she was talking about like all these different things and like a syndrome because of the hands, but she was like, she wasn't explaining like what she thought it could be, or like it just, and you know, honestly, when you're going through that, you don't know. And it was almost like my ears were ringing, and I was like watching her mouth move, and she was writing all these things down. And I was like, I think I'm going to throw up. Like, this is too much to handle. Like, so we left there and we were like, is our baby going to die? Like, we literally had no clue. So then we had to go through a weekend because it was on a Friday.
Oh no.
It was horrible. And so then the next week I had a fetal MRI, which was really pleasant, being 28 weeks and lying on your back for over an hour. I had a fetal EKG. I had my amnio. Had something else. Oh, we met with the neurosurgeon. It was like appointments at Duke, like every day.
Wow.
And so the amnio, they sent it off for a craniosynostosis panel. And there's only like 1 or 2 labs, I think, in the country that do that specific panel.
I didn't even know they could do that type of panel.
And there's one in South Carolina, and it's like specifically, they do certain like specific ones. And so it took about probably 3 weeks to get the results. So we got the chromosomal results, and that was all normal. But she was like, if it's something like what we think, if we think it's Apert syndrome. So at this point we were like, okay, this is probably what it is. But of course I was in denial, and I was like, it's going to be nothing. It's going to be fine. Like, I was praying for a miracle. And my husband had kind of like come to terms with, this is probably what it is. Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Someone's calling me from Iowa. That's weird. And so we went in for the results of the genetic testing, and it was Apert syndrome. So the end of my pregnancy was really, really hard, because then we were meeting with like neonatologists and like all these different doctors, and you know, not really knowing what to expect, because until the baby's born, you just don't know. And so we were expecting to have a NICU stay of like 2 to 8 weeks. Well, he was in the NICU for 12 hours. That's amazing. I nursed him in the NICU on the his first day. He was in my room that night. Like, we left with him. He was healthy, you know, other than the obvious you know, thing. So he had rosebud hands. So his hands were like this. Okay. And so I took pictures, and or I have pictures to show people. So this is Thomas today. Oh. Well, not today, but now. And then when we start talking about surgeries, I have other pictures, but everything was like mostly normal, other than like once we came home from the hospitals, like doctor's appointments and second opinions. We flew to Philadelphia and we flew to Dallas. We had already decided Duke was not the place for us because the surgery they recommended, just other doctors had told us not to do that. And we didn't feel like Duke's volume with Apert syndrome was high enough for them to really be experts. And my husband really butted heads with the craniofacial doctors there. So we were like, we're out. So we get all his local care at UNC if it's beyond pediatrician stuff. But then we see Dr. Fearon in Dallas. So I went to college in Dallas.
So that's quite a ways.
It is a ways, but so I went to SMU, which is in Dallas, and I have several good friends that still live in Dallas. So again, it was like another, like, this is not a mistake. Like, this is not a coincidence that this, so it's like my whole life, I was like preparing for this child. Like I mean, it's emotional, but we've loved Dr. Fearon, and he's pretty hands off. Like once you leave, it's like, if you need anything, fine. But everything else we do here with our pediatrician, or if we need something like ENT, we go to UNC. His eye doctor's at Duke, but everything else is through UNC. So yeah.
That's awesome. How many surgeries has Thomas had?
Thomas has had 4. His first surgery was his syndactyly release of his hands and his feet. And that was April of 2019. And they also put tubes in his ears just as a precaution, because their ears are set lower and the fluid can get trapped. And they just did a bronchoscopy just to look at all of his airway and make sure everything was okay. And it was. And then his second surgery was the second part of his syndactyly release of his hands and his feet. So after that, he had 10 fingers and 10 toes. And that was July of 2019. So that was right after he turned 1. We went to Dallas for that. And then his frontal orbital advancement was November of 2019. So he had 3 big surgeries in a span of like 6 to 8 months. It was a lot, but he also was young and, resilient.
Exactly.
I would say, as far as like recovery wise for him, the hand and the feet was harder than the head. And you worry about the head because you think, oh my gosh, he's got an incision from here to here. His open and reshaped and put back together. But that was probably the most emotional surgery. The first surgery was really hard because it was like, my baby hasn't been and now he's got all these scars and, but so that was November 2019. And then he had his tonsils and adenoids removed this past December just because of his sleep apnea. And so we have a follow-up sleep study actually in 2 weeks to see if that has made any impact. I honestly don't think that it probably has, but he won't tolerate a CPAP. And Dr. Fearon says the next step is a trach, but he only needs help sleeping. So I don't know, but I also sent myself pictures to show y'all. So this was before his first surgery. That's my mom. I don't know if you can see like his little hands, but you can see his head looks like a little bit like a jellyfish.
He's adorable.
There's a close-up of his hand, one of his hands. This was before that one also. So sweet. Okay, so this was a few months after the first one. So at this point, he had a thumb on his right hand and a pinky on his left hand, and everything else was like this.
Right.
So you can see his hands. And then this was after all of them. I can still see some scabs on there. It's a couple months after. So see his hands. So And this was the day before his cranial vault surgery. His head, you can see how flat his forehead was. And then this is a few months after.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean,
that looks amazing.
Yeah. And this is him now.
Oh.
So he's precious.
He's my little man. He is so precious. So
he's really sweet. Yeah.
Are they talking about doing the mid-face between?
Not yet. Dr. Fearon said probably 7 to 11. It's just going to depend on how he develops and grows. So I imagine at some point, so he'll be 4 this summer. We're just kind of like living life now. Like the first year was hard, the first 18 months with all those surgeries. Yeah. But since then, even Dr. Fearon was like, we might have to lengthen his thumb. His thumbs aren't long and long enough. And that gives him some problem with dexterity, which his hands are never going to be normal. But, he does what he can with them. But, he's like, let him live and just grow up and be a normal, as normal as possible kid. And then as things come up, we'll just kind of take it as it comes. So yeah, I mean,
that's a good plan.
Yeah. So it was the end of my pregnancy was awful. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I mean, it was terrible. I was depressed. I was, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking I'm going to wake up tomorrow and this is going to be like a nightmare. And it never did. And I talked to a mom who lives in Alabama, whose son probably now is like in his 20s, but it's a random, someone my husband went to college with. It was like his cousin or something. And so it was like his cousin's best friend, or I can't remember, such 6 degrees of separation, but she was so sweet. And we talked on the phone, and I will never forget her telling me this and me thinking, what are you talking about? And now I even think it to myself sometimes, like, everything is going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And you realize that you have this child for a reason and they're here for a reason. And, you just embrace it. And, knowing before was so hard. But for me personally, I think it was better to know before, because his birth was actually like happy. And we were like, he's crying, like, first step, like he's breathing, he's, I looked at his hands and his feet, and he was, and it was just, we already knew. So it wasn't like, and I had C-sections. So it wasn't like the operating room just got silent because everybody's like, what's going on with this baby? Because that was my birth. I mean, that's so scary. It's so scary. So, and then you have to deal with the mourning, the loss of a normal child, and all of that after they're born. It's so hard. I mean, I think for me, knowing beforehand, I like to be prepared for things. Like surprises.
I've always wondered myself if I would have been better off knowing before. And honestly, I don't know if I would have been.
I mean, it's your journey. Everyone's just different. And so it's, I think it happens to everyone how it's supposed to happen.
Exactly.
But I mean, it's just crazy. But like knowing, like when she said, everything is going to be okay. And I was like, no, it's not. Like I'm in hell right now. Like this is such an, like, what, because I knew nothing really about it. And now here I am. And I mean, Thomas is not easy. Like he's not like my other kids. Like and the nonverbal aspect is really, really hard. And we're going through this thing right now with the car and the car seat. And I mean, he also has a lot of autistic traits. And so, I'm dealing with that. But I love him. But then I like will sit and like when I hear him laugh, when he's watching Blippi, and he's just like, he's either like super happy or he's like so mad.
Yes.
He's stubborn, but he's so smart. Like I see it. I know he knows letters and numbers and colors. he just can't verbalize
Right.
it. And so he learns differently, but he's amazing. I love it. I mean, you know, of course he's a child, but
Our kids are just, they're so resilient and they're so strong and they're so smart and they're sassy. Like a lot of them, our kids are sassy and they're just amazing. And then you see the older ones that they're still so happy, even though they're going through surgeries and they're going through things. And it's just inspiring.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I think that doing this for people that are coming along behind us is such an amazing resource to be able to watch these videos and see different parents and their perspectives and just know, like, yes, it is going to be okay.
It is,
even though
definitely.
it's hard. Like, it's hard, and the hard times are really, really hard. But someone also told me, like, the valleys are deep, and it's like, but the milestones are like such a bigger celebration than it is with a normal child. And that's so true. Yesterday at the pool, one of the things we were talking about in his IEP is sharing. He does not want to share. He bit a child in his class the other day. So I had an incident that I had to sign. And he used to do it a lot at the beginning of school, but because he gets mad, and that's his way of being like, I want that toy. And he did it again this week. And I'm like, he hasn't done it since the beginning of school. So we go to the pool yesterday, and the pool's hard because kids are staring at him. But we were in the baby pool, and this little 3-year-old boy was playing with him, and he had a dinosaur water gun, and he was letting Thomas play with it. And then Thomas gave it back to him, and they were like switching it back and forth. And I was like, I have to tell his teachers about this. Like,
that's cool.
That is a big milestone for us. Like,
that
my other kids are even like, you need to share and you need to whatever. And like, I'm like, it's things like that you're just like, wow, I am proud of you. Like, you can do it, you know? So it's a lot more rewarding, but it's hard. So
most definitely.
And I feel like with our network of moms, it's just awesome.
It's
social
such
media
a blessing.
is a saving grace.
It really is. It's a blessing, and it helps so much. Yeah. It truly does. So, it really, truly does.
Yeah. And I actually just started this book. I was going to tell people that, I mean, not everybody's spiritual, and that's fine. But if you are, a woman at church have you read this?
I have not.
I think I put it on that comment thread with the books. Because is this showing up backwards?
No, not at all. Not at all. Okay.
So it's supposed, I barely made a dent in it, but it's supposed to be like making sense of, you know, God doesn't allow suffering. So why, you know, all these things, and making sense of why our children are born this way and why they have to go through things. And so I think it'll be a good read.
I need to pick that up. That looks really good.
And I have like everybody's books. Like, I have your book in my Amazon cart. I have everyone's books in my cart. I'm like, I probably shouldn't spend like $200 on books today, but maybe every time I place an Amazon order, I'll be like, I'll put that book in the cart. I'll put that book in the cart.
Oh, that's great. Do you have a website or a blog or anything?
No, I have so I never did like a Facebook page or anything. I have a Caring Bridge site, and I don't really, before he was born, we kind of started it just as a way to let family and friends know what was going on without having to tell everybody.
Yes.
It gets overwhelming.
It does.
And so, I mean, I don't know if I have to share it or if I have to, I mean, I can send it to you. And
if you want to send it to me, and then I can link it.
Yeah, because I'm totally fine with people reading my posts, because I talk about his different surgeries and, you know, my emotions and how I'm feeling. And it's kind of like a diary, like a blog, I guess.
That's cool.
But it's not, I have 12 posts, I think, like not many, because it's just, I have 3 kids. I can't keep up with something like that. But it's, you know, pretty much before he was born, then when he was born, some updates on him, and then like surgeries and stuff. So it could be helpful for people that are going through or about to go through all that, just to kind of see, you know, knowledge is power.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. If you want to send me the link to that, and then I'll just post it when I post the video.
Okay, perfect.
All right. Well, we are getting close on time. I've got the remaining meeting time is starting to tick away. But it was really nice to meet you. And I love hearing about your story and about Thomas and seeing pictures. And I can't wait to do more videos to where one day we can meet Thomas and have a video.
I know.
With Thomas.
I'm like, wish all these gatherings were like closer.
Yes.
Or like,
I'm in New Mexico, so I'm on the complete opposite end of everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's people everywhere. It's crazy.
Yes.
And there's actually, Jessica Elliott lives here now in Raleigh. Okay. She was in Winston-Salem. And then, when you meet an APER child, it is like meeting a celebrity. You're like, oh my gosh.
I know.
So the first person I met when Thomas was teeny tiny was Jess Ann. We met at Chick-fil-A after one of Wesley's eye doctor appointments at Duke. And I just remember he was so little, and I had all my kids with me and I was like, what's happening? But she was amazing, and still she'll text me every now and then and we'll kind of catch up. But then Jessica, when she moved to Raleigh, I was like, I live in Raleigh. So we went and met at a park, and she and I went to dinner another time, and now she's engaged.
I know. I saw that.
Exciting. But so when Cam and Thomas met, I have this picture of them. I should have pulled that up too. But I mean, they looked like brothers. They're blonde hair. And she said Cam didn't start talking till he was 4. So I'm like, okay. And now I'm like, we're about to be 4 and we have no words other than ma, and dad.
It'll come.
So I'm like, oh my gosh, when is he going to talk?
It'll come. I've learned that everything is on Emma's time.
Yes.
So I think that the talking will be on Thomas's time.
Yep.
So
he's also stubborn. So
yeah, but I think it'll come.
No, it will definitely come. He's making more noises. He's communicating in his own way. Like, I can understand him. So I feel like for the most part, other people can't, but it's fine.
Exactly. It's fine. As long as you can understand him, that's the important thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So we'll get there, but meeting other people is just so comforting and refreshing. And
I find myself every time I see pictures, I get jealous. I'm like, I wish I was in a bigger place. I'm like, oh, I want to meet all the people.
I know. And so when we go to Dallas, there's a couple people, and I'm like, when are we going to walk in the door of his office and someone's going to be there?
Yes.
And it hasn't happened yet, but because I think didn't Adrian and Bennett's mom, weren't they there at the same, someone was there.
I think so. Yeah.
Does he? No, he doesn't go to Dallas. Someone else. There were 2 people that were there.
They were at the same time.
And I was like, I am having FOMO.
Yes.
Not that I want my child to have surgery, but I want to meet y'all.
Exactly.
It's yeah. Keeps us going.
Absolutely. All right, Marcy, thank you so much for talking with me today. I appreciate you. This is
no problem.
I'm excited about this.
I'm excited that this is going to be happening.
Definitely. And hopefully I will get to talk to you again soon and we can meet Thomas.
Yes, for sure. Just let me know.
All right. Okay. Definitely.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.